Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hi, I am Sylvia Hayes, and you are watching a Good News at Primetime. Man, the first thing I got to say is you can tell fall is here. You definitely can tell fall is here. It is actually cool outside. But I want to say also that we have a good show tonight. Our topic is politics. What politics got to do with it? And we have some great candidates, people on our panel tonight who's going to be talking about politics and what they're involved in and their roles and all of that good stuff. But we got good news. Good news is I am doing my first book signing on Sunday, November the 7th at 3 p.m. at the Apex Museum. That is good news. And you can get information by going to Eventbrite and look on the Power Thoughts book signing. That's my book, Power Thoughts book signing. And you can go to Eventbrite and look it up and register for it. We want everybody to register so we'll know how many people to expect, okay? You got entertainment and food. I know food bring a lot of people out, okay? So Eventbrite, come on out and listen to some entertainment, okay? And also, this is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Uh, for the month of October. Month of October is almost gone, but I just want you to be conscious of it. And a lot of people, uh, they know about domestic violence and they see it happening, but they don't say anything. But we want to make you aware, make you conscious, and speak up and do something because we have to stop the violence. And sometimes, even if a loved one, a guy might hit you or say something ugly to you, trying to control you, and you're gonna be saying, "Oh, he loves me." That's not love. And when somebody hits you out of anger, that's not love because love don't hurt. So do not accept violence from anybody. Okay, love don't hurt. Domestic Violence Awareness Month. It is so important because a lot of people get killed over this. Okay, they kill their spouses because they're trying to run away from them. Um, it's out there. Okay, Domestic Violence Awareness Month. So now we're gonna go to my co-host. Hi, Mr. Reggie. How are you doing today?
What's up, Miss Sylvia? I'm doing too good to be feeling as good as I feel. But we're talking about two topics that I really bring dear to heart. One is the domestic violence, and the other is politics. Over here we say you should either run for office, own, lease, rent, or borrow a politician and control their actions and efforts. And one of the most critical elections that's taking place is right now here in Georgia and around the nation, what we call the municipal elections. This is when we talk about our mayors, we talk about our city council people, we talk about our school board people. Now, people say, the president, they do everything, the Congress do everything, we want to impeach the other guy, but your local elections determine everything. And I mean everything from the streets you walk on to whether or not your kids should be vaccinated at school. And the school boards determine should they be thinking about critical race theory, the information that they use and indoctrinate our kids with. So school board members decide all that. The mayors, we saw last year where mayors, especially black and brown mayors, whether here in Atlanta, Jackson, Mississippi, they had to go against the governors of the state. So you had to have a good, strong mayor that could withstand the blows of the governor. And then you had to have city council people that are strong enough to represent where you live. For instance, there are many people that don't have the opportunity to elect a mayor. They live in unincorporated areas, whether it be Gwinnett, DeKalb, Fulton, Clayton, Henry, all around the metro area, and the whole state. And the only way you have any representation is through what we call a council member. And and that person represents you. So it's going to be critical. So I'm excited. We're going to share some information and encourage people to get out there, share, like, and tag, and let your loved ones know tonight it's all about politics, and everything is local politics first.
Yeah, it is. And you know what? I didn't realize that we had an election, even though I think there's only two people that's running for something here in Norcross. But I mean, it's there, and you don't have the regular polling places like you normally do either. So that's another change. You know, some people
Oh,
don't know that.
yeah, a lot of people that come to Georgia, you're coming in. So, I think I'm coming to Atlanta. Well, not that Georgia is hoodwinking you, but every state has their own method of engaging people that come in, and they gradually bring people in. You look at a lot of people in that live in the outlining areas, they're not going to be able to vote. And
Right.
some of the policy people that have lived in those areas for a long time did not realize that some of those politicians were not even being opposed. Nobody ran against them.
Right.
So they become people that just get grandfathered into the system. So it's a lot to learn tonight, but I'm pretty sure our guests are going to share some important things with us because all politics start local. Like we say, buy, lease, rent, or run for office. Uh, and you should have a politician where you can call them up. These politicians that we're voting for now, you should be able to call them up and say, "Hey, my street light is out. Hey, they didn't pick up the trash. Hey, the school board people, I don't think they should be making my young ones have to wear a mask or vaccine. You see, all this stuff is happening, so it's critical. And this is one of the most, and this is going to lead the way up to the upcoming primaries, general elections, and all the way up to 2024. So everything starts right here.
Right. So let's go ahead and introduce our guest. We have our first one, Mr. Dr. John Eaves. Hi, Dr. Eaves. How are you doing?
Sylvia, I am so elated to be here, and Brother Reginal, he said it right about politics. All politics is local, as the famous Speaker of the House Thomas Tip O'Neill said. All politics is local. Yeah, we vote for president, senators, congressmen, but hey, people want to make sure that their streets are clean. That's the city council and the mayor. So
Yeah.
it's the local impact, local. So I'm happy to be here, share my insights based on my political experiences and my future aspirations.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
And then we have our next guest, Miss Sharon here. Hi, Sharon. How are you?
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me this evening,
Oh, thank you. So,
everybody.
look, Mr. Here, not Mr. Here, Eaves.
Yes.
John, would you like to tell us about you?
Oh
Tell us a
yeah.
little bit about you.
Well, listen, I come from a family of public servants. My father, my mother were educators. My grandfather is an immigrant from Jamaica and imposed onto his children the responsibility of providing service to others. And along with my father, his brother, who is my uncle Reginal Eaves, he was
Ah.
the first black police chief here in Atlanta. My political mentor, unfortunately, he passed away 5 years ago, but he certainly
Right.
inspires me and taught me a lot about politics. So I followed his footsteps. I served as chairman of Fulton County for 11 years, from 2007 to 2017. And I currently teach at Spelman College in the political science department. I've been doing that the past 3 years, working with dynamic young women who want to be future lawyers and future um,
Right.
public servants and members of Congress. And they tell me that they want to go into public office because of how I teach them and how I share with them about the political process. And so, Sylvia, I'm just excited about sharing with your listening audience tonight about my perspectives.
Oh,
Awesome.
okay. Thank you. Okay, Sharon, you would like to tell us a little bit about you?
Just a little bit. I am Sharon J. Hill here in Cobb County. And formerly with Good News at Primetime. It has been an honor to be a host with the esteemed Reginal Eaves, co-host as well as booking for his show, The Hot Seat. And so my relationship with you all go way back. And again, I am here for, look, voter empowerment. It is what I've been doing, what I advocate for with the Georgia Coalition for the People's Agenda, convened by the late Dr. Joseph Laurie, of which his birthday we celebrated for this month. And of course, now the voter empowerment person, recognized Ms. Helen Butler, our executive director. Additionally, I am glad to be back serving with Senator Donzella James. That's what we're here for, the American Rescue Plan Act. It is something that she has answered the call for. And as we move into the end of this election cycle and to the upcoming year, there's work to be done. And that is what I do. Let's get to work. Let's get it done as well.
Oh, okay.
Awesome, awesome.
And we have a new one just chimed in, Miss Juliana. Hi, Juliana. How are you?
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? I'm sorry.
Yes, I
Yes,
hear you.
yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, good
So would you like
afternoon.
to tell us a little bit about you?
Absolutely. And a correction. Good evening. It's been a long day, but it's been a great day. We're super excited. Thank you so much for having me on this call. Thank you, Sharon, for inviting me. My name is Juliana Njoku. I'm the founder and executive director of a 501c3 non-for-profit here in the Atlanta, Georgia area called Workforce Strong. Workforce Strong raises funds to help with rental assistance for those that are returning back to school to get additional training to increase their income mobility. But tonight, I am representing the Southern Region Economic Roundtable, chaired by Michael T. Hill, that are advocating for the American Rescue Plan. I'm here to provide some additional updates about what's happening with the rescue plan. There are also some great things that have happened recently regarding the expansion to a new executive order that affects the Black community specifically. So I'm super excited. I'm also the Economic Justice Chair for Georgia's National Organization of Women. So I'm very excited to lend my voice to this conversation this evening.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you. Okay. So tonight's topic is politics. What does politics have to do with it? Okay. So anybody can chime in. What do politics have to do with the way we live today?
Really? Everything.
Everything.
It has everything. It has everything to do with it. But I actually like to say, because again, having been on the ground for voter empowerment, one of the drawbacks is that people mistake even voting, that it's politics. Well, it is part of the political wheel, but it's not politics, it's civics. And we have to roll it back to the fact that as a citizen, it is a right. And Dr. Laurie's quote was, it's a sacred right and a moral obligation. As Dean of the Civil Rights Movement, that is what he stood on. And that is what we move in. And that is to that end, people say, no, I don't vote, I don't deal in politics. But let me just share with you that if you have a driver's license, if you have an ID, if you pay any taxes, I mean, that's just going to the store, right? That you pay taxes. Well, guess what? The tax commissioner is elected. And so they decide what is happening with the rates. And former commission chair Eaves can share with you that yes, it matters. It does matter. And you are participating. You are, you could say, an unwilling participant, but you definitely are participating. So what better way to actually be in charge of how you participate by exercising that right and voting, registering, and then vote in every election. And I heard Sylvia say, well, wait a minute, I didn't know we were having an election. She better not ever let me hear her say that again. Anyway. How dare you? How dare you? Wait a minute. How dare you? She's supposed to know that. Yes.
Well, since you're on that topic, because most people that come to Georgia don't come with a clear understanding or any state of how politics work. You know, we think about the presidential election, we might think about the governor, and we might think about a mayor. You know, I had people that lived in Henry County, Gwinnett County, and it was like, well, y'all gotta vote for a mayor. I said, well, you guys have someone to vote for as well. So there are websites when you go any city or any state that you tune into, because we got people coming from all over. You should immediately check out the Secretary of State website and find out and establish, your presence here in the state. And one of those things is by even getting a driver's license and, registering to vote. We've got people that have been in the state for 10 years. And I know it sounds cold, but they say, well, I vote in Detroit. Okay, well, you've been here for 10 years. Okay, you've been in one of these counties, but to get people to understand the mechanics of voting, because here we got local elections, what we call municipal elections, the mayor, city council, and school boards. And most people bringing their children here, they don't understand why people are attacking school boards. They don't understand why they're not getting things done in their unincorporated areas if they can't vote for a mayor. So what are some of the things that you all see or you think should be brought to people's attention if they come to Georgia? And I just throw this out. People should know they have to have their ID. People should know that they're not going to be giving food away in the lines. People not giving you all the rides that you had to the polls on the last election. So you're going to have to do something a little bit different. So what do you see is some of the, I guess, not necessarily challenges, but what do people have to do to be prepared to vote?
Yeah, so that's a great question. But let me back up, if you don't mind, Reginald. I think that the American system of government is confusing for people, but it's actually pretty straightforward. So you have federal government with the president of the United States and the Congress makes the laws. And then each state has its own government with the governor as the executive head and the legislature making the laws or proposing the laws for the state, and the governor signs it. And then you have beneath the state government, you have counties. There are 159 counties in Georgia. And the county governments, for the most part, they are both, they're a legislative body. They make laws and they also pass budgets, and they have impact on the citizens of the county. And then within the county, you have cities. Fulton County, for example, has 15 cities. And each of the cities has its own government, with the mayor being the executive and the city council making the laws, coming up with the ordinances, proposing the budget, or the budget is proposed by the mayor, but the city council passes the budget. And then within cities, you have school districts. And so each one of these levels of government is has responsibilities for people, and you vote for each level of government from the federal down to the state, and within the state to the county, and within the county, cities, and within the cities, you have school districts. And so you rules are determined by each of those levels of government, and each of those government entities where you live, when you elect people to represent you, or if you don't participate and people get elected anyway that may represent your interests or may not represent your interests, they decide on the rules, they decide on the ordinances, they decide on the policies, and they decide how your tax dollar is spent. And so that's why you participate as a citizen to choose your representative for each of those levels of government, because each of those levels of government has some kind of impact on you, no matter where you live. And even if you don't have children, you still pay for school taxes, and the school still indirectly has an impact on you. And so um, I think the biggest thing is people don't understand the various levels of government and which each government is responsible for. And then you vote for somebody who represents you in that government. And then each of those governments, they all have an impact on everybody. They control, I won't say they control your life, they influence greatly your life, and they definitely take your tax dollar, whether it's out of your paycheck or when you go to the store and you pay the sales tax, they take that money or they use that money and they decide how to spend it.
Ooh.
And homeowners have to pay school taxes.
Everybody, if you pay school taxes through your property, and so whether you're in Buckhead or you Southwest Atlanta, a certain proportion of your property based on the value of your home and your land, you pay a tax, and the school board decides how that money is spent for children who attend the Atlanta public school system.
Right. And if you have a problem and you didn't vote, then you have no voice. That's what I tell people all the time. You got to vote. Vote for people who will represent you. Don't say, I'm not voting. I don't believe in politics and all of that kind of stuff, because you are involved, whether you know it or not. Whether you actively participate, but things affect you. The representatives who are there, whether you voted for them or not, affect you. And you're going to have a complaint about something, and then you want to go to the commissioner. Did you vote? No. Okay. Why do you have a complaint? No. What voice do you have? Your voice is your vote. Your vote is your voice, shall I say. Your vote is your voice, and you have to vote for people who represent you. Don't just let anybody get in office. And that is so important. People don't realize that.
If I could piggyback off of that, I think that that's an excellent point. Last year, during the runoff election, participating with several Get Out the Vote campaigns, talking to young people about why they should vote, especially young folks that were voting for the first time. I tried to explain to them in this manner. A lot of people, especially people in the Black community, don't see the actual act of voting as you hiring the best person to represent your interests. You're the boss. You pay into the tax system here. You pay into the culture here in the United States. You pay into it through your labor, through your time, to your gifts, and through your talents. You are the boss. And voting is your opportunity to hire the people to represent your interests. And if they do not represent your interests, as you're holding them accountable, you have an opportunity systematically, the way the government is designed, to also fire that person and hire that person. So when you're dissatisfied with policing, when you're dissatisfied with what's happening in your local communities, sitting back and putting your hands up in the air takes away your power, because you are indeed in charge. Every citizen of this country has the job, the duty, because you've already paid into the society, to hire everybody from your president down to your local commissioner. But if you do not exercise that right, then what you've done is that you've allowed whatever group, whatever person to put forth their interests ahead of yours. So it's us being able to take responsibility and accountability. When I explain to people, to younger folks, that this is your chance to be the boss of the kind of society, what you want moving forward, your interests, your policies, by being able to speak to the person that says that they want the job. And whatever that they say that they're going to do when they say they get the job, you're supposed to take that down and hold them accountable and vote for the person that is aligned with your interests. I emphasize that greatly with people that say that they're not going to vote, but yet are dissatisfied, extremely dissatisfied with the way that they're living, the way that their communities are, what's happening to their men, what's happening to their jobs. If you are dissatisfied, I want you to recognize this evening that you are the boss. Next Tuesday, you are the boss of what you want to do and how you want to see the Atlanta area. The people that represent your interests is who you should go out and vote for. And what they say they're going to do for you in your interests is how you hold them accountable. If they do not achieve your goals to your liking, guess what? In just a few short years, you get a chance to hire somebody better and somebody more aligned. And that's the system of our democracy today. And that's how politics affects everything, because we contribute to everything. There's no global society without the people that are living in it. So you matter. Your vote matters, your voice matters, and bottom line, you are indeed the boss come next Tuesday. The question is, who do you want and who aligns with your interests?
Yeah, and one of the things I want to say is don't stop just on voting day. When they're in office, if they're doing something that you don't approve of or something you want to say to, call up your elected people and tell them, hey, you need to do something about this law. Talk to them. Don't just let them randomly make these rules and regulations and vote on something without you saying anything. You can call your representatives and talk to them or leave a message with their people who answer the phone. That's normally what I'm doing, leaving a message with them. You need to pass this law. If laws are going up for voting and if you like it, hey, put your word in, vote for this. If you don't like it, don't vote for this law. I don't like it. You can explain why. Because they're going to listen because you hired them. They will listen. Okay? So don't be afraid to just call up your representative and talk to them. Call up the mayor, call up your state councilor, whoever. I've called the senators, state representatives. I have called them and voiced my opinion, on certain things. So don't just let that vote stop right there.
Well, vote. Well, I got a question coming from the audience out here. I encourage everyone to continue to like and subscribe to us over here on YouTube. But doing this, they say one of the least areas of participation when it comes down to voting is this particular municipal type election, because people that live outside of the city, they don't see or understand the importance of the mayor. They don't the city council people or the school boards. What type of solutions are you all looking at or empowering to encourage people to vote? Because a lot of people go to sleep on this election, because there's an election every year. And most people go to sleep on this election, the most critical election when it comes down to when you look at people getting pulled over. The mayor decides who's going to be the police chief. When you look at these little dumb city ordinances, too much loud music or too many people gathering, face masks and vaccines for restaurants and things of that nature. And when you look at the curriculum that's being taught in schools, school boards, all this stuff. But how do you encourage people during one of the most important elections to get out and vote? What do you have to say to the people to motivate them to want to vote?
There are several things that you can say to people, and you said quite a bit of them right now. The number one thing that gets, for the time that I was working on different campaigns from Baltimore to the campaigns here in Atlanta, Georgia, low voter turnout is usually coming from the community saying that they're deeply disappointed, or they have a disenchantment or disbelief that what they truly desire is actually going to get addressed. And then the other myth that the election's already set. The guy that's the most popular, the party that is the most popular is obviously going to win. So why do I have to get out of bed to go participate in something? Because people don't like the intrinsic feeling of losing or not being heard. To get people to come out, we have to make voting a community event, a community action, something that's a part of churches, something that's talked about the Sundays before and at every rec center and at every barbershop, something that the community is talking about, but talking about it in a way that it directly impacts you. If you have school-aged children, if you have concerns about the police, if you have issues with the taxes, things that directly affect you, and making it a community event, community day event. There are many countries that have made voting day a national holiday to make it a national community event. But locally, especially when you have people that are coming into office, this is something you can ask people that are coming into office to say, locally, what can we do to make voting day an actual community day? And prior to that, using the community avenues that we have through churches, community centers, through our localized areas, our gathering spots per se, to be able to start actually educating people on exactly what you just said right there. This localized event is actually going to impact you way more than a federal event. This is going to impact your day-to-day lives, and here are the day-to-day things you need to know, and here's this community event. What is impeding you at this particular point? And if there's an impediment, utilizing Get Out the Vote organizations who have been deeply dedicated in making sure that if you need a ride, we'll take you there. If you need support, we'll take you there. If you want to vote early, we'll help you register, and making sure that we canvass. But really, one of the greatest ways to increase voter turnout, it's one of the ways that Georgia was able to turn blue, is that on that day, that runoff election, we were all out here as a community. There was not an individual on that day. And that's a big way of getting a localized group to increase their participation. How are you going to make it a community event?
Wow.
So, John, you are running for an office. Is that correct?
I am, yes. So
No, I am not.
No, John.
Yeah, Sylvia.
Yes.
Yeah. I forgot to put that commercial in earlier. Yeah, I'm running for Secretary of State, which is a big deal. But what Miss Njoku said is spot on. Let me add another perspective that I wanted to share. So the municipal elections are the least voted elections. Then you have the state elections are next, and then the presidential elections are usually the ones that have the highest turnout. My question is, okay, you either can make voting sort of a national holiday and really push so that people can vote on election day, or you may want to be creative. And I ask the question is, why do municipal elections have to be on odd years? Why can't it be lined up with some of the other elections where you have high turnout? I'm not sure if there's any rhyme or reason why the municipal elections of this year, state elections next year, and then 2 years after that, the presidential election. So to me, there may also need to be some sort of consideration of perhaps you need to better line up the elections so that the elections that get the least attention, the local elections, maybe lining them up with the state elections. I don't think anybody's ever asked that question. We just do it.
Right. Yeah.
There's nothing special about doing the mayoral elections in 2021. It could be done in 2022. They all work on a 4-year cycle. There's nothing. There's no real rhyme or reason why it's just
Well,
arbitrarily that way.
Yeah, so
I'm gonna I'm gonna
just for
drop
somebody
one.
who don't know what municipal is, would you tell them what
Yeah,
that is?
it's a fancy word that just means city. So yeah, so we just say municipal elections. That includes mayor, city council, school. So these are elections that occur in cities, and then statewide elections are the state officers, um, the representatives to the legislature, and depending on the year, it can be a county election. So county elections are also lined up with the state elections, but the municipal elections are the odd year. Uh, so I'm not sure why that's the case. Um,
Well, I'm gonna throw this caveat in there. And when you look at America, we have to look at racial politics. A lot of things that were built in because the national election or the federal election, the president every 4 years,
Mhm.
senators, even in Georgia, we still got people that say, well, why was uh Ossoff able to get a 6-year term and Warnoff got to run again in 22? Well, they stagger things based on the states wanting to control or be influential in the federal level. And then when you look at the states, the cities within the states want to control the action and efforts of other things. For instance, Atlanta, if you look at Atlanta, Atlanta is considered a brown or a black city. Now, the other cities around Atlanta say, well, we want to have some influence. So what we do is we have to have some type of control of where we are. And when the people come in, even if they go to Atlanta, they're going to still live in one of our little cities, whether it be Sandy Springs, Jones Creek, Buckhead, who's trying to get their own little city, or anywhere, Dunwoody, Doraville, all these little cities, and we want to control the efforts and actions of the people that are coming in. And most of the time, people don't really get involved until they've been in the area for almost, especially if they apartment dwellers and people of that nature, they don't really pay attention that much to local politics. So the people that are inherently been there for a long period of time, and those people are usually Caucasians, they have stayed on the rules and regulations that have been built into the Constitution, even the United States, even the Constitution, the rules and regulations of Georgia. But local elections, people have the opportunity to change all that. You can put policies together that say, you know what, we want to have our elections, and we can put a referendum or something on the ballot that says we're going to do it every 4 years to make it easier for people. But they don't want to do that because it makes it easier for people to go up against the status quo, which is normally white supremacy. So we have to look at that. But that's just my little caveat in it. But Ms. Sheridan, look like you want to get in there. What can we do to motivate people to want to go vote?
So I actually just came to this meeting, because that's what we're having here, our round table, from my Cobb County NAACP meeting. And to that end, that is what we were actually discussing, because again, while we have the term a robust early voting report, at the same time, you have been receiving that it is still low. So how do we combat that? Well, we are dealing with the fact that there are areas like the senior living areas, and the president, Jerry Grimes, noted that we do have one of our own senior centers, senior living facilities off of Benson Pool Road here in Cobb, off of South Cobb Drive, and they're wanting to vote, but they also need rides to the polls and actually to do absentee voting. You have, of course, yesterday would have been the last time to even submit an application. And so we're wanting to make sure that they get there. And so we coordinate that. And then, of course, one of the things you mentioned was who's on the ballot. Well, incorporating the awareness more so of My Voter Page. The My Voter Page has everything you need on it. It has where you go, well, the locations that you go for early voting, because again, on election day, you go to your district poll location. But also it has who you will be voting for, because you can pull your sample ballot. And for a lot of the cities, remember that there will be, well, within the county, but the cities also have their SPLOS, the special, yes, options, tax, sales tax. And so that is pretty much across the board for most of our area, for most of our counties. So the motivation, of course, we have our churches. Juliana mentioned that. We have the community centers. I mean, what I call it is conscious conversation. And that means wherever we are and whomever we're speaking to at whatever time. That means on your phone, when you're on the phone talking to someone, having, or look, standing in line at the grocery store, since we are now back pretty much. And even at the different events, like we're looking at when you're at the ball game, when you're at the upcoming New Black Wall Street Market Festival this weekend, it is a question, because you will have during these events, the candidates will be at those locations. And so it's a time that we remind them, we remind each other, and we help get people to the polls. People's agenda has rides to the polls as well. And so again, it is the My Voter Page, knowing before you go, know before you vote. So the My Voter Page, mvp.sos.ga.gov, has everything there for you, like poll location changes, because we're dealing with the poll location change here because of taking it from a middle school and then going to a police training center. Wow. We know, yes, and we know what those implications are, but the conversation, the Cobb Board of Elections is, hey, we just needed a larger place, and because of the school system, but we don't, it's to let people know, but to also make sure that they go to the polls. True. And making sure you ask the questions. Did you get your vote in? The early vote celebration was this past weekend, the 23rd, and so there are buttons that say, yes, I voted early. I have people that said that I voted early, or I'm voting by this Friday. Remember, is the last day of early voting. So it's making sure of the information, making sure that each one reach one. Let's get back to that. So Juliana mentioned something to, how you say, are you ready to hire your employees? Just using those out the box. But what it does is spark. It sparks oh, no, I never thought about that way. Yeah. But we should. So looking at things, I thank Juliana for that.
Yeah. So I hear that they're now trying to redraw lines to affect your voting. So, John, what office are you running for?
So, Secretary of State of Georgia is the person who oversees all the elections of each county government, manages the 8 million voters who are registered to vote in Georgia, and also oversees the corporations division, provides administrative oversight of the licensing boards of professional organizations, and also oversees the securities division of the state of Georgia. So it's a big executive position. Most people know about it in terms of voting or the elections process. But it's one of the what's called a constitutional officer. It's a statewide officer. The current occupant of the office is Brad Raffensperger.
Right.
So you don't sign off on those redistricting, do you?
No, that's the state legislature. So it's an important topic here. So every 10 years, there is a census count done of the entire United States. And then the census is also broken up, obviously, according to states. And so the state of Georgia actually has increased in 10 years its population by about 1 million people. And so with the 1 million new folks who moved into the state, and many of them are Black folks and brown folks and Asians. And so it has actually led to further diversity in the state of Georgia. So believe it or not, Georgia is 49% non-white and 32% Black. We have one of the most diverse states in the entire country, which is almost unthinkable 30 years ago, 40 years ago in the South. Georgia is one of the most diverse states. It's actually almost, and probably is today, a majority minority state in terms of population. So what does that have to do with redistricting? There was a company, an organization that looked at the diversity of the state, the growing diversity of the state, and they said that if the lines of the state of Georgia were redrawn fairly, the state legislature, in terms of the Senate, will actually have half of the senators will be Democrat and half of them will be Republican, because the lines will be drawn in a fair way where people who live in those jurisdictions, they will not be gerrymandered, or their vote won't be diluted. Unfortunately, the state legislature is Republican controlled. They're going to use all of their power to draw the lines in a manner that's advantageous to them as Republicans. And so you're going to continue to have a disproportionate number of Republican seats on the state legislature level. And already the first map that came out has District 6, which is currently held by Lucy McBath. Her district will be stretched north to the portion of Forsyth County, which is a red county, a red area. And then District 2, where Sanford Bishop is in middle Georgia, around Albany and southwest Georgia. His district has been redrawn to become less Democratic. So already the process of redrawing has begun, and the preliminary maps, the first maps that are come out, which are congressional maps, it has at least 2 seats that are held by Democrats that could potentially be flipped to red if the proposed maps go through. I know that's a whole bunch of academic jargon there, but basically the lines are being withdrawn, and the state legislator is responsible for that process, and the Republican-controlled legislature is going to do all it can to maintain or increase its power as Republicans in this state.
Yeah. And Dr. Eaves, you bring up a great point when you bring up Stanford Bishop. That's my area. I'm from Albany, and a lot of times we get caught in the sauce, because we're not paying attention. And it's extremely important, like conversations like this, because you got to understand politics. Everything you do is political. And these people that have been here, even though we've been in the capacity to vote, they were already setting the deck up before the Voting Rights Act got enforced. They were already thinking about things that could be put in process to limit the forward movement of anybody that came in not knowing what it did. All these primaries, all these elections every year in the state of Georgia, anybody can remember when Cynthia McKinney ran a couple years ago, people were like, well, how did she lose? Well, they had a thing called a general election. And in a general election, the state of Georgia, I think Mississippi does the same thing. You can vote Republican or Democrat. That's a mechanism that's designed to put a candidate in that could take the candidate that the people wanted, even if they were voting. So they were able to slip a lady in. I forgot the lady name, the least legit. She was voted. Is more Caucasian people voted for her than Cynthia McKinney, and Cynthia lost that race. So we have to understand, and we have to be clear that politics means something. You might not think they mean nothing. When you see the people coming out doing the things that they're doing, last year when Georgia went blue, they had outside people that came in to help people outside of Atlanta, because Atlanta is not the state. You got 159 counties that are just as jacked up as you can imagine, and people are scared. They had never had people drive them to the polls. They had never had people explain to them what was on the ballot. They had never had people that came to them, and now the state of Georgia says, guess what? Y'all can't even come to the state.
Well, let me just wait a minute. Okay, so let's be real clear. That is not a never in that, because we had Georgia Stand Up, we had the People's Agenda, we have had the Urban League, we have had the NAACP, the SCLC, National Action Network, and so many other organizations. We have always been on the ground. We have always been sharing with people. We have always been educating, registering, and mobilizing. The difference was there was money that, let's be real clear what occurred.
Clear. Money.
Okay. That brought more. And in all actuality, for years, I was pretty much the lone voice for absentee voting. Nobody, not even our own leaders, cared about absentee because of it being a process. So it had been done, but this was done. It was, every effort was heightened. And as Juliana spoke about how we did it, we went back. That's what happened. Barbara Arnwine and others, and yes, with the fair count and all of that, yes. Transformative Justice Coalition that's on the ground now in Brunswick right now, that has mobilized across the country, but there are others with it, Public Citizen and all of them. It was a concerted effort across this country. But I actually wanted to ask John to address the fact that, as you spoke about what happened with Cynthia McKinney, let us be real clear on the process, and that is primary. The primaries are the defining factor because of what can be done, but the history of the primary.
Oh yeah, and it was clear when you look at these states, especially the southern states, Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia, South Carolina. Even when Black people were allowed to vote, they had built-in mechanisms already by design to either impede, slow down, or restrict or control your ability to vote. But Brother Eaves, Dr. Eaves, can you share some stuff? You know, because as we get into this thing, it's deep. We got a lot of elections between now and 2024, because your election for Secretary of State that's going on when?
Next year, 2022.
That's next year.
Right.
One-off election is going on next year. The governor election is going on next year. All those, that's next year. And they already, if you look at Vernon Jones, Herschel Walker, all these people are already putting their stuff in there. And, well, you know, this is critical because it sets it it paints the blueprint for how the rest of us can either get in line, because we're coming right back on another election in 2022. And it's going to be super important. 2023, super important. Sheriffs and judges and all these people. Now, we have to look at, what do you see as priorities right now? Because we got all these elections coming up. Your election is coming up really next year. But what are some of the priorities that you all see that we need to focus on, how they say, right now?
So let me share some good news. Juliana,
Okay.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Juliana. Go ahead.
Oh, no. You go. The priority I want to mention, I can mention after you. There is something that I do want us as a Black community to pay attention to right now, because it's in line with what Sharon was talking about. The difference maker for us being able to continue to do what many have been doing, on the backs of what many have been doing, to make sure that we have voting rights, that we have the capacity to hire the people to serve us, had to do with resources. And on January 20th, the first act done by the current president, President Biden, was Executive Order 13985, which is the Advancing Racial Equity and Support for Underserved Communities. And that act interjected $1.9 million into the local economy. This has been followed up on October 19th with a brand new executive order specifically focused on Black people. Now, why should you care about Executive Order 14050? Because this is another avenue for us to get resources so we can do exactly what we're discussing tonight. Lay the foundation for civic education, so that we know the policies to change, so that we know the strategies to administer, so that we can actually be aware of the candidates and the best candidates for our interests. Without us having resources, we can end up with lone soldiers, individual groups, pocket discussions that don't actually impact policies, don't actually get well-rounded elected officials like Dr. Eaves into office if we don't have the resources. Well, right now, guys, if you are not paying attention, because I don't foresee this happening again, there is a looming amount of resources and funds dedicated specifically to the needs. And we have a need for civic education. We also have a need for voter rights, dedicated to civic education for our communities. This is the biggest interjection of funding that has happened in history. The American Rescue Plan Act is there. We're still spending CARES Act money. But the problem is people's lack of awareness, people's lack of participation, the change of guard of all the elected officials that are about to be voted in during the years when these fundings is going to be around, is going to grossly impact your community if you don't get those resources to the schools, to the health cares, to the workforce development, to the areas that are desperate, that we need desperately to be taken care of, so that we can actually be able to focus on our civic engagement and learn how to move around this chessboard. We're at a very, very, very critical strategic time. Why is politics important? Because it's a part of the strategy of how we are going to all live. It's a part of how we also share in the pie that we've contributed to. There is a humongous slice of the pie right now. And most people that are sitting around, most elected officials, most people that are running for office are not being asked, what are they going to do to make sure that Black businesses, education, school systems, health cares, what are they going to do to make sure that this funding, these resources that helped us turn Georgia blue and has helped us do other things, get to our community? Because right now we're being blocked. The access has not been going on. Millions of dollars are being sent back right now. Rental assistance, one of the dire needs, they've sent back millions of dollars from the state of Georgia, and more people are facing evictions right now. We're at a huge strategic time. Who are you going to elect that's going to go and fight for those dollars to make it to your community? That's why politics is important. And I don't foresee in the near future that you're going to get $1.9 trillion, that you're going to get a specific designated executive order for the Black community, specific designated order for underserved communities in your face. And all you have to do is make those calls and access those people to get those funds for the resources, for the candidates, for the systems, for the policies that you want. That's why politics is important. So what can you do right now? Pay attention to these numbers. Forget everything tonight. Remember ARPA. Forget anything tonight. Read 14050. It is the latest and greatest hot off the press executive order that is focused on the Black community. You don't care for those numbers? Play this number, 13985, Executive Order 13985. This executive order is funded. It already has the funds. Half the money came in May. More money to come. But if you're not feeling rental relief, if you're not feeling like your children are safe for school, if you are still concerned about what's happening with your policing, if you are not feeling that your small business, your Black businesses have returned back to their highest standard, then you're not paying attention to the fact that the president has released the money. The money is with the governor. This next set of round of funding is going to your local commissioners, and they are supposed to be getting this funding to you. You paid into it. You paid into it. And that's why politics is important. You paid into it. This is your money. But I don't see enough people paying attention. So you don't want to vote? Well, I've never seen anybody walk away from $1.9 million, but you're about to walk away from that and billions to come if you do not get out and vote and pay attention to what's happening. It won't happen again. That's what you need to be paying attention to.
Well said. Well said.
Well said.
Well said.
Ask those candidates and ask those candidates, what are they planning to do to bring that to the district, to their respective districts? And that's from the state to the county to the city. Some of them have been fighting for it, but others have not bothered to even know about it. But as Juliana says, if you don't know any other numbers, you need to know those numbers. And that's what we need to be doing, is asking them, candidates and incumbents alike, what is your plan for the ARPA, American Rescue Plan Act funding for our district to address historic inequities, which was built to transform the communities as we recover from COVID and to finally make our communities whole. It is for all of us, but definitely our president was intentional in carving out and speaking to Black, he named the populations. And so that are underserved as well. Veterans, seniors, thank you. Thank you.
You had something to say, John? We get ready to go.
Oh, let me just close this out. I mean, I think this is great conversation. What Juliana just said was marvelous. The good news is Georgia is really unique in the United States of America. I mentioned the 32% Black population. What does that translate to? We have more Black members of Congress than any other state in the country. We have more Black mayors in any state in the country. We have more Black legislators in any state in the country. We have more county commissioners in any state in the country. We have more Black sheriffs than any state in the country. We have probably more district attorneys. The point is, we have more Black elected officials in Georgia than any other state in the country. However, there still is a disconnect of all of this Black political power and translating into Black economic power, as well as what Juliana so well said. How do we use the political power to get government money down into the pockets, into the hands of people who really need it the most? Something is missing right now. There's no common agenda that all of these Black politicals can do to make sure that the economic agenda is advanced for Black people, because we still get a disproportionate share of what we deserve.
For some reason, I'm thinking that money is not going to these people for rental assistance is because they are allowing people to be put out on their homes, and then the big real estate people get this money, get these housing, and make a killing off of it. At the state of people being homeless. That's what I'm looking at. They just letting people go. Because I've heard of one person who had money, their rent was paid, but they still put them out. Even though their rent was up to date, they still put them out. So I think that's a political thing. That's the way I'm looking at it, is politics, because it's money time.
Well, it's about policy, but that also needs to be addressed by policy as well. For all that they are doing, the landlord, they have turned down 12 months rent that has been provided by the grantors. And so yes, it is a crisis right now because we are in a pandemic. This is truly an emergency, and we have to do things in an emergency that you would not ordinarily do. However, they're still acting like these are regular times. And so we are addressing that with the collaborations, like I said before, with the community organizations, the NAACP and others. It's what we have to, it is what we have to stand for. Wow. I want to take the time to thank Senator James, because she has held 4 hearings on the American Rescue Plan Act. Chair of the Committee on Interstate Cooperation with Senators Freddie Powell Sims in Albany, Ed Harbison in Columbus, Senator Emmanuel Jones in DeKalb, and Jen Jordan in Cobb County. And right now, Juliana so graciously closed out on this past Friday to speak to what is next. And as she said, this is what we have to do. This is what this time is. And so please, we put the information in there that those numbers, Executive Order 13985, Executive Order 14050, the Governor's Office of Planning and Budget is who has the applications for 13985. It is there, and the deadline is 31st. And so as we're speaking to the timing, it was in May and now it's over with. Certain things have ended, and about that, but on heels of 13985 is 14050. So let us be boots on the ground and all hands on deck.
Right.
This is the time, and it's never happened before. We are 75 years to the first time that Blacks were allowed to vote in the primary, and when they did, they were killed. In Butler, Georgia, Monroe County, and the Malcolms and the Dorseys, Morris Ford Bridge lynching in Monroe, in Georgia. That's what happened. So the primaries matter, and we have to get ready for that. That's right. We have to vote like it's 1965 and the Voting Rights Act was just signed. And let's be clear that the late matriarch of the voting rights movement, Dr. Amelia Platts Boynton Robinson, her quote, as she was a Savannah native, lived in Selma and helped lead that movement, and passed when she was in Tuskegee at 105. That first-class citizenship. Be a first-class citizen and vote. Know before you vote at my voter page.
Okay.
Wow.
This has been a great conversation. You have anything else to say, Reggie, before we close out?
Well, in the words of Nino Brown, this ain't personal, it's political.
Okay.
It's all
This
about
has
politics.
it is all about politics, but make sure you vote, guys. It is so important that you express your right, your God-given right to vote and have representation for yourself. Okay, it is so important. So next week our show is going to be modern technology and quick fixes. So until then, y'all be sure you get my book Power Thoughts. You can get it on Amazon or lulu.com. Also, my thing is on my book signing November the 7th, 3 p.m. Apex Museum, which is 135 Auburn Avenue downtown. So until next week, you take care and remember, your vote is your power.